The following podcast is an enticing media production.
Where the Nell have you been? Join us for conversation about life, business, and everything in between. Welcome to What the Nell, where we've got stories to tell. Here's your host, Nell Tice.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of the What the Nell podcast with yours truly, Nell Tice, and my special guest co-host for the series we are doing on this podcast called Don't Follow Me, Steve Trott. Steve, welcome back once again to the What the Nell podcast.
Hey, Nell, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
There you go. There you go.
So I want to mention a couple of things. I want to tell the listeners to stay tuned to the end of the episode because we have a couple of, or one fun announcement, I guess you could say, maybe a couple, I don't know, but the goal,
Cool.
yeah, the goal of today's episode is to kind of summarize where we are in the series, where we're headed, and maybe answer a couple of questions ourselves about certain things on social media. But yeah, I mean, I know we've had a few guests by now, and we've also had some conversations on our own. So, Steve,
Yeah.
I guess my first question to you is, how do you feel the series has gone so far?
You know, I like it. I think it's gone well. I think I feel like we've unraveled the topics pretty well.
Yeah.
I feel like our guest episodes have been a bit more forthcoming. Like we've unraveled a little deeper because of having a third personality to kind of pry into and dig a little into another perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So those have been good. But I think overall, I think we're hitting our stride the way we expected to.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, I mean, I'm happy with it.
Good.
And I feel like we've uncovered things pretty well.
Yeah. And if this happens to be the first episode of the series that anyone is listening into, to summarize, we started this series, Don't Follow Me, because, or I guess I don't know if because is the right segue, but the series is based around social media and why someone wouldn't want to follow somebody. If you're looking for somebody that's inauthentic, for instance, then you probably don't want to follow me because I am a very honest person, especially when it comes to social media, because I believe that if you're not, that ends up becoming, you end up going down a road that
Yeah.
becomes very exhausting to maintain, first of all. But yeah, reasons to not follow someone, kind of hitting the topics of clickbait and hustle culture and
Yes.
quality of followers over quantity and things like that in these social media topics that everyone deals with. So do you think I kind of explained that correctly?
Yeah, I like it. And just in the same segue, you know, you're right. That is the primary reason. But on the flip side of that coin, if anyone is listening right now that has listened to the previous episodes, we've also touched on the points of why you may want to follow someone. So
Yes.
for just as many reasons that you don't want to follow someone, we've also touched on the positive aspects. And the series itself, for me, you know, the title is the title because I think it's a cool title, and it covers social media so broadly scoped.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we're just preaching to everyone about don't follow me. It's like we're covering both sides of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've tapped into that energy and information very thought-provokingly.
Yes.
Because a lot of the listeners, hopefully, are taking away from these episodes questions.
Yes.
And that was my original goal. My original goal was, if you have the time to listen to this and you put the time into it, you then need to learn something from it. And if you're causing yourself to ask yourself questions, that's the goal.
Yes. Absolutely.
Doesn't matter what your answers are. It just matters that you're self-reflecting and you're taking something away.
Absolutely. And you hit something there that I kind of want to expand on a little bit. You said that we explore both sides or multiple sides of social media, how we use it, why we choose to follow and why we don't, and reasons to either or.
Yeah,
I think that we did a really good job of that in the episode about imposter syndrome with Kelly Johnson because
100%. Yes.
yeah, we talked about the ways that social media contributes to imposter syndrome, but we also talked about the ways that we can help influence social media to be better in it. And
Yes.
what we can do as a society to help protect our mindset within social media to stay away from the feelings of imposter syndrome. So I think we did a really great job there. But I think that if listeners want to get a really, really good idea of where we were going with all of this and why you would follow someone, why you wouldn't, or why you seek followers, you should definitely listen to the episode called To Follow or Not to Follow, which I think is the second episode in the series. Um,
Yes.
yeah. But
I think so.
yeah, yeah, I know we've gotten so up there now in numbers. It's hard to remember who was what and where and which episode. But I think that our first guest episode, the one with Mike Bence, the clickbait and the false sense of promotion. I think that one was really cool because it was very different how we did that.
Well,
So
yeah, because we kind of got split up, and
yeah,
you channeled it, and it did. It turned out great. It
yeah.
was great for me as it's weird for me to say as your quote unquote co-host, but for this series, it's still weird for me to think that. And when I was about to say, for me to sit back and listen to that episode and not be a part of it
Mhm.
until we got to a certain point,
Right.
that was very powerful even for me
Yeah.
because it allowed me to channel that information a certain way because I couldn't interject and I couldn't be part of the discussion. And
Ah.
it made me think about it a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And I took some notes, and that actually kind of turned out pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. I did really like the format of how it ended up happening. The conversation that we had with him was amazing and his perspective on why he chooses to follow people and uh, that whole subject was really interesting too. And the fact that we could follow up with your take and
Right.
after that it was just I think the format of that was really cool and it was one of my favorite episodes that we've done so far.
No, it's great. I liked it too. It's good. It's good.
Good. Yeah. And of course, Kelly Johnson was our most recent guest when we did an episode with Christina Deal about hustle culture. And that one was
I
really
really like that one. I like that one.
yeah, that one was really great. And Christina was telling me that she had a lot of really great feedback. And the feedback
Good.
that she received mostly was that everybody enjoyed hearing the different perspectives on wealth and what wealth is.
Yes. That's good.
And I thought that was really interesting. And, hustle culture is obviously very directly related to wealth. And I thought that was really, really one of the most thought provoking episodes that we've done.
I completely agree. It was very real, and I think that one for me sticks out because same as with the one with Kelly,
Hmm.
but the one with Christina, we had very different perspectives on a few of the subtopics,
Hmm.
and it was very nice to hear that and have
Hmm.
a shared discussion and kind of bounce ideas and discussions off of each other, realizing that we were still talking about one topic,
Yeah.
but we really unraveled it pretty deep. And wealth to Christina, not having kids and different like the perspectives that she brought to the table
Hmm.
was key.
Yeah.
Because for me, I can only look at that, when we talk about happiness and wealth, I
Mhm.
can only look at that from one perspective. My one
Yeah.
perspective is I have a very large family.
Hmm.
So how well am I taking care of the other 10 people in my family?
Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
it's a perspective that someone else doesn't get to experience every day.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with that. We all had very different perspectives. And I come from a perspective of not having kids, but having a husband. So there's that different side of things too, where it's the two of us, it's not just one of us, and it's not 10 of us. So that's, that's a little different too. I love that we were all in different situations so that we
Yes,
could
yes.
all bring different perspectives to that conversation.
And we're all in very different lines of work, and that even
Yeah.
brought some perspective to that table. So,
Very much so. Very much so. I've said
right,
so many times to people that your opinions, your thoughts and feelings, and a lot of how you react to things is directly related to your own experiences, your own situation, and where you are in life. And just because for any of us, just because my perspective of wealth is what it is right now doesn't mean it's going to be that same way in a year. So
absolutely.
realizing that these opinions and everything, they're always evolving, is something that we need to be really cognizant of too. So, just a thought
1,000,
there.
1,000%. No, I agree. And it's a good, that word opinion, that's a key word. And we should probably talk about it for a minute, because really, when you look at the entire series, and for the listeners right now that have been with us the whole way, number one, I commend you for that. And I thank you. And number
Yes.
two, hopefully you've gotten the full effect as we bounce from topic to topic, because the key thing is we are simply sharing with you a perspective and an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And the key thing with opinion is such a strong word.
Yeah.
Everyone in the world has an opinion,
Yeah.
positive, negative, neutral,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, if it causes enough self-reflection that you're willing to work on something for yourself that makes you look at something from a different perspective,
Mm-hmm.
that's the end goal.
Yeah.
And
And are
it,
you willing to be open to a
right,
different perspective?
are you open-minded enough to realize that, you know what, you're not, there are people in the world to this very day, some we may or may not even know personally, but there are people in the world that feel they are the best at whatever it is they do.
Yeah.
They wake up in the morning, they believe they're the very best at their job, and no one else in the world can do their job the way they do it. I'm sorry, we can be friends and all, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the wrong outlook on life.
Yeah.
It's really the wrong outlook at your career, at life, at, you need to be willing to understand that there is sometimes other opinions. There are sometimes other ways to achieve the same result.
Mm-hmm.
And while you might be very good at something, doesn't mean that's the only way. And that's ultimately what I hope the listeners learn from some of what we talked about.
I do agree with you, Steve. Now, here's just a little bit of a devil's advocate.
Well, that's what you do. You're good at that. Now let's hear it. Give them something to think about. Let's hear it.
So, what if there's a situation where there's someone who adamantly believes that they are the best at what they do because they've been told, or they have won the highest award possible in their industry? So that gives them an accolade that no one else has received or can receive, but and then of course there's also amount of followers and amount of this.
Yeah.
And what if there is a scenario where someone has achieved something that quote unquote puts them at the best level? What about that?
Well, I think it's real if it's earned and warranted. So if and again, this falls down to opinions.
Mm-hmm.
There are probably people right now listening that would say Elon Musk is the greatest mind to ever walk the earth.
Mm.
And he's the greatest. He's been successful. He's become an inventor in so many different ways, or whatever the case may be. But we're still narrowing down opinions. And
Mm-hmm.
you can look at wealth, you can look at power,
Mm-hmm.
you can look at status in the world.
Mm-hmm.
If it's warranted and it's been achieved and there's something that backs it up, then that's great. All the
Like
more
proof.
power to the person. Yeah,
Right. I mean,
like that's great. Congrats.
it's kind of like
I wouldn't.
LeBron James, Michael Jordan argument. Who is better? What do we use to
Yeah,
to gauge
I
what
mean,
makes them better?
right. The funny thing is that argument happens every single day in the sports world and even not in the sports world.
Yeah.
But my simple comment to that is, well, you can compare what the two have achieved. The Michael Jordan's achievements are absolutely astounding and incredible, and he did it many, 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 many years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something to be said about consistency. That,
Yeah.
we know this word in business,
Yeah.
in life. If you can be consistent and you can consistently deliver results,
Yes.
there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
That is something that goes with the name Michael Jordan. Now, the second piece of that discussion is, to any one person out there that would pick one or the other, think about for a second if those two players faced off one-on-one and you really truly looked at what their skill levels are and what they're capable of achieving, and then put them face to face. And you can start to see that you would get different results.
I think you'd
One
have to
person,
put them together at each of them at the prime of their careers. And
100%, 100%.
yeah, I mean, you can't put Michael Jordan together with LeBron James now. I mean, Michael Jordan is
No,
a lot older.
no,
He's been retired for many years, and LeBron is still
yeah,
playing. And you cannot put them together to compete
you can't.
right now. You'd have to take each of them from the prime in their careers and have
And
them compete
at
against
the
each
end of
other.
the day, I know this might sound weird, but to the basketball fans of the world, especially the ones listening right now,
Yeah.
if you have to realize that these individual players had different goals. These individual players had different goals. Michael Jordan, being a person that I grew up watching in my younger years and the years that I played sports, his goals were never self-focused. You never heard Michael Jordan give an interview about his personal performance or how many points he scored in a certain game. You never heard him talk about that.
I don't know, Steve. I don't know if I agree with you on this one. Ooh, I
Well,
think we found something.
maybe, but there were times where it came up, but it was always secondary to his commitment and goals to win championships as a team, to set levels and marks that he achieved with the support of his teammates. Because
Yeah.
even some of the stuff that he talks about, his achievements, he very rarely does not talk about them without talking about the people that helped him achieve it.
Well, no, I'm not saying that that's not true. Now, here's the thing. I mean, I didn't follow Michael Jordan very closely. However, my husband Kenny did. He was a huge Bulls fan, Michael Jordan fan,
Okay,
North
okay.
Carolina fan, followed his entire career. And one of the things that Kenny had told me he always admired about Michael Jordan was his absolute arrogance and cockiness on the court. And while he may not have been self uh self-fulfilling in interviews, he absolutely was using that as ammunition on the court. And the
Oh,
trash
100%.
talking he did
Yes.
and all of that stuff. Now, I'm not saying that makes his goals any different
No, no, no. You're
or
right. It's
sheds different
actually,
light on them.
I completely agree, because honestly, to a sports person,
Mm-hmm.
those are two different things. Because in professional sports, especially in the era that Michael Jordan played, where the game was naturally played harder, the game was played way harder then than it is now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he needed that. If you weren't intimidating enough,
Mm-hmm.
you were already at risk of not achieving what you set out to achieve.
Right.
Now, his arrogance and his energy and his "I want the ball in the final moment" mentality did not necessarily make him self-focused on his individual achievements. That was just his way to rally everyone around him, or spark, or what I like to say in building, light the fire. Literally lighting the fire in, whether it's a customer to make a decision, another contractor to get off, to step forward and do something, get something done. You have to create that spark and light that fire to get
Sure.
other people to perform as well.
Sure.
And
I do agree
think
with that.
his energy built a lot of that around him.
I'm sure it did. Absolutely. Now, but is there any part of you that thinks that anything he did, any of that trash talking on the court or anything, was any part of a goal for him to be the best?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't take it when you're considered the best,
Mhm.
or you potentially have the title of, as everyone says, the GOAT, the greatest of all time. You know, when you start, especially when you're still active in your career, and those things start to become part of discussions that are being said about you, it changes
Mhm.
your your mental capacity,
Mhm.
and it changes your mindset. You do change how you play.
Yeah.
He he wanted to, there is no doubt at all, he wanted to be known as the toughest player,
Mhm.
one of the most successful players
Mhm.
to ever play on the court, one of the most um, energetic players.
Mhm.
Because really, when you look at the trash talking and you look at the energy and the hardness of the way he played the game, he was so willing to fail. He wanted every opportunity he could get to be in the spotlight,
Mhm.
knowing that he would fail hundreds of times, but he would also succeed potentially hundreds of times. And that was, and I do believe that was part of how he taught himself
Mhm.
how to perform
Yeah.
at such a high level.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking anything away from any other player. I'm
No.
not I'm not a diehard Michael Jordan person.
Right.
I'm a basketball fan of that era. I was a huge Kobe Bryant fan. Love
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant was phenomenal on the court.
Mhm.
And a
Mamba
lot of people still,
mentality.
yeah, a lot of people still to this day say that he was basically a younger version of Michael Jordan.
Mhm.
And if you go back and look up Kobe Bryant interviews,
Mhm.
Kobe Bryant talked about how his entire childhood he was a basketball fan and his idol was Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
He looked up to Michael Jordan and he made a goal every day to learn to play the game the way Michael Jordan played the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, it's funny how we get on to basketball, and I guess we,
'Tis the
I guess we
season,
should have
right?
Kenny, I guess we should have Kenny and Billy Zerillo on this call, right? Like,
I mean,
why not?
it would be the right thing to do.
That'd
By
be
the
too
time
funny.
this episode comes out, we will have been through another round yet of the NCAA
Right,
March
right.
Madness playoffs. And, we'll see how those things turn out. But I will say, on a tangent here, I was doing amazing in my bracket and a group that I'm in, a fantasy group, or not fantasy, but just like
Awesome.
a
Yeah,
bracket
yeah, yeah.
challenge. But then I took a deep dive this weekend and we seem to be rebounding, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, good for you. I, unfortunately, due to my own schedule and life and all that,
Mhm.
this is the first year in a long time that I actually haven't
You
really
didn't
been
fill out a
able to
bracket?
follow it. Nope,
Yeah.
didn't fill out a bracket. Haven't been able to follow it, any of
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah. I mean, I will say I used to follow it a lot more when I was younger. And I feel like every year it got further and further away because, well, life. But
well, life.
yeah.
You're an entrepreneur. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. All right, we're gonna head away from the basketball
Basketball.
speak, and not that there's anything wrong with it. I love basketball. Maybe we should do it a whole episode on basketball, but um, you know, I'm kind of wrapping up with the series, and I think, we also took a look at some of the things that we don't really want to talk about in the social
Yeah.
media world. We did a whole episode on you saw my post, why didn't you like it?
Right.
Nobody
Right.
wants to talk about these things. It's like you see people see reels and videos and certain things on social media, whatever they allow you to see analytics of, and you see certain people seeing things, but you see that they don't like it, and then it's kind of like it creates this stigma, and uh, I mean, it sucks, first of all. And but secondly, why do we place so why is that so heavy? Why do we place so much expectation on people to like everything that we do?
Well, it's interesting, and we may have even touched on it in that episode because I know we
I'm
talked about
sure
it
we
pretty
did.
heavily.
Yeah.
But the one thing that still stands out for me is it causes, to me, it should cause a little bit of self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are posting something and you go back to check that post in 10 minutes just to see who's liked it and who hasn't liked it,
Yeah.
and then you say to yourself, wait a minute, that person saw my post, but they didn't like it. Why didn't they like it? Well, at that moment in time, right then and there, you can say to yourself, you are utilizing social media in the wrong way.
Yeah.
And you can put your phone down and walk away from it. You are using it in the wrong way. And it's so important. And I'm adamant about expressing it. And I know it's just an opinion. And to everyone that disagrees with me, I don't care. But it simply is a platform that allows us to A, express ourselves, B, share information, C, expose a business or use it for advertising purposes, all of the things that business owners need to do, whether it's socially or not. It's a platform that allows us to share information.
Yes.
And if you're posting something and you are in straps and upset with yourself or upset with someone, Nell Tice, you saw my post, but you did not like it. Why? And if you even have the audacity to message someone and say, hey, why didn't you like my post? You are flat out using social media with the wrong goals and the wrong intentions and should probably rethink your entire social existence on that platform.
Oh my gosh.
And
I would say I think I struck a nerve.
Yeah, you did. Well, because it kills me. It kills me so much the way people look for reactions, likes, and they dig on that. Like,
that's
I don't know
social
why.
media culture, Steve. That's what they want you to do. They want you to feel accepted by getting the likes and the views and the followers and the subscribers.
Right. But what are we left with? What are we left with? We're left, well, depending on what your following is, you're left with a sense of false advertisement. You're left with a sense of a look at me mentality. Everything.
You're left with imposter syndrome. All of the things.
Every single thing we've talked about now, we're summing up right now that says cautiously think about how you post, what you say, how you say it, and allow yourself the opportunity to realize that maybe this funnel of likes that's going to show up, maybe it shows up days later. Maybe it shows up. There are people in the world that still don't get on Facebook every single day.
Oh, yes, indeed.
And then how crazy is it? Let's say, Nell, I know you've done this before. Let's say you take a weekend or you just take a break from social media, 24, 48 hours. How many times in your past have you caught yourself in a scenario or realized that you're even thinking about, oh, I wonder, someone didn't see this or I didn't see this in time. Are they possibly going to be asking me? I don't know. And it depends how close friends you are with certain people. It depends on the types of things you're involved with. But I know that happens for people. Someone takes a break from social media, something exists in the social media world, and then days later, someone says to you, oh, how come you're not coming to such and such? Oh, I didn't know about it. What do you mean you didn't know about it? I posted it on social media. Well, if you want me to know something, don't just post it on social media. Right? Am I wrong here? Are we having fun yet? Are we having fun or what?
No, I absolutely agree. And Steve, what you're talking about, I think, is boundaries. And I'll tell you that, I toy around with new changes to my routines occasionally. For instance, I've been experimenting lately with putting the phone down like an hour before I go to bed and really trying to get my eyes away from the screen because that's what I do for a living. I'm in front of a screen all day long. And quite honestly, it bothers my eyes a lot. Sometimes at the end of the day, my eyes are really tired and they get very watery and it's a whole thing. So I've been trying to give my eyes a break before I go to sleep because it does also interfere with your sleeping habits and reading a book or something decompressing. And so for that hour, if somebody's posting something, I'm not going to see it for the next 7-ish hours until I probably wake up in the morning. And so if you're expecting a response back, well, sorry, you're not getting it because it's my boundary.
Right.
And
Right.
you're right with social media breaks, like taking a weekend and disconnecting and things like that. I know for
Right.
some reason.
Well, yeah,
What?
the one that kills me the most is like an event or something
Oh,
getting
yeah.
scheduled, or it's a get together and someone posted on social media.
Hmm.
They choose to not individually reach out to people. And then they want to know a couple days later. Like, here's the thing with the social media profile like mine, I don't even get to, I don't see your post every day.
No, I
If
I
I
don't see
want
yours
to, I
every
need,
day.
exactly. So I need to sometimes search that out if I'm actually physically looking
Yes.
for something.
Yes,
But
sometimes I
then,
will see posts 5 days later. The first
yes,
post that will show up on my feed is 5 days old. And it
yep,
might be from somebody that I barely know, or it might be somebody that I know very well. So
exactly.
it's frustrating. It's for whatever reason, events, I don't get it. I used to get a lot of like random event invites for like online parties and stuff like that from people that I didn't even know. So I stopped looking at events. Like if you invite me to an event on Facebook, there is a high chance I'm not going to see it.
Right. Well, it makes perfect sense. And that's what, I guess that's the thing to people that are listening and future listeners.
Mhm.
It's, you really have to give respect to the environment that you're in. And you have to remind yourself, depending on how critical that information is, do not, like, the one that gets me probably the most would be like a family member update.
Mm.
Like, you're getting a family member update, or you're messaging a family member, checking in on something, or even a close friend.
Mhm.
And it's like, hey, how are you? Did your procedure go okay?
Mhm.
Or how's everything going on? Do you need anything? And their response, and believe me, I know personally because this happens, but their response to you is, oh, yeah, everything's cool. I posted an hour ago. Didn't you see it?
Yeah.
Well, that drives me bonkers.
I
Like, oh, don't you want to light a fire? That lights the fire.
All right,
Like,
we're gonna stop you right there.
right there, right there. Now, don't be that person.
I'm
Don't be
not
that person.
not gonna be that person.
But you
Oh
know what I'm
gosh.
talking about. You know what
Yes.
I'm talking about.
I know
Yes,
exactly what you're talking about,
it
and
happens
so
way
do
too much.
millions of other people. Yes, no,
Yes.
I do agree with that. Steve, I think that we've had an awesome time. I have one last question for you.
Are we going to
Where
see Justin Timberlake? No, no, I'm not.
are we?
No, I don't know. Is he I keep hearing from everyone he's coming to Hershey. He's
Justin
coming to Central
Timberlake?
PA. Yeah, this summer, July 4th, I think. And like, people are
No.
starting to rant and rave about it. That this is going to be the concert of a lifetime for a lot of people.
I'm sorry. I
And I'm like,
don't believe that Justin
I'm
Timberlake
not
is the
going.
concert of a lifetime. I'm sorry. Like
No,
I have
I'm
no
not going.
disrespect. You know what? I did listen to NSYNC. I listened to JT's some of his solo stuff in the early 2000s. Great, but concert of a lifetime? Come on, man.
No, yeah.
You
Well,
cannot
sorry.
compare with Beyonce's Renaissance tour or Taylor Swift's The Eras tour. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, I won't disagree with you there. I got to see that firsthand.
Yeah,
So
yeah, you did, which I'm still very jealous of. But I did watch it. I watched it when it came to, I don't know, whatever platform it was on at the
yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah. Yep.
I loved it. I
No,
thought it was
that's
really
good. All
great.
right, I'm sorry. Curveball from left field. Go ahead. Back to your question. Back to your question.
All right. Question is, where are we going with this series? Are we continuing it? Are we stopping it? What are we doing here?
So I think we do this. We had a recent discussion. We both have a couple breaks coming up. I know we're
Mhm,
cruising into the Easter season. You've
mhm,
got some travel plans happening.
mhm,
Um, I think it's a series that is worthy of finishing up with a
mhm,
couple key topics, because there's a few discussions out there that I think we could, number one, circle back on, and number two, finalize a couple topics we haven't quite dug into. And
mhm.
then I kind of feel like that's it. So I feel like there's a couple more recordings coming down the road.
Yeah.
And I think we can ice it. And then what we can say to all the listeners is I really, really, really would love to see some feedback in the future months
Mhm.
of people that really listened to this, had some takeaways, or had some flat out disagreeing moments.
Mhm.
And I would love to explore looking at them or talking about those moments. And
Yeah.
maybe sometime in the distant future, we come back with even a few of those individuals and
Yeah.
discuss a couple of those items.
Yeah, I agree. I see nothing wrong with that. I like where your thoughts are at. I like where you're headed. To me, the series is kind of like a course. If you're putting a course out, there's no reason why you can't keep updating it to keep it fresh. So, if that happens and people offer feedback and we end up with some topics and guest ideas and things like that, there's no reason why we can't continue it and never close it off completely.
No, I completely agree with that.
I love it.
I,
I love it,
yeah,
Steve.
no, it's good. I appreciate it. Now, this was a nice little recap too, because
Yeah.
the series has gone on for some time, and it's been a great series to record with you. I thank you so much for the
You're welcome.
opportunity to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And I loved everything about it. I loved how it went. I loved how it flowed, and hopefully everyone out there agrees. And I owe
Yeah.
all the thanks to you. So I
Well,
appreciate you letting me be a part of it.
Steve, I owe many thanks to you. I mean, I told you before we started recording this episode, I said, if I'm not making fun of you in some capacity, that's when you need to watch out. And as much as I might make fun of you about, rescheduling things and or having to cancel and things like that, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this and committing to it,
Yeah.
especially with all of the commitments that you have outside of this podcast. So I really do appreciate you and
Well,
your time.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you saying that and mentioning that. It means a lot to me because
Good.
the biggest thing I've learned in life, my life is on the go, and being in the construction industry, in some of the industries and even the community that I serve in certain ways,
Mhm.
my life is never standing still.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your flexibility, and that
Mhm.
goes a long way.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. That's my goal, is to always be accommodating to ways that we can, if I'm participating in something that can help someone else do something better in their lives, then why not be flexible?
absolutely. No, it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
Good job. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. Well, now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, a couple of things. I know Steve mentioned we've got a couple of breaks coming up. This episode is the end of season 2 of the What the Nell
Awesome.
podcast. And for the first time in the history of this podcast, What the Nell? She's taking a break. Yep, that's right. We are going on hiatus for, I'm thinking, about 2 weeks. We will not have any new episodes released, and I'm not re-uploading another episode. So it's going to be 2 weeks, no episodes. So you get a little bit of a break too. Use that time to catch up on previous episodes that maybe you didn't get to hear. And I really appreciate your understanding, to the listeners, for getting that this has been a weekly thing for the past 2 years. And sometimes you got to regroup and rethink and reorganize. And part of that rethinking or regrouping, Steve's going to hate this when I say this. Here's a new
Oh boy.
revelation. What the Nell podcast is going to video. Yep, that's right. What the
That's
Nell,
awesome.
we are going to video. So when you watch these episodes on YouTube, you will actually see human beings having the
That's
discussion.
awesome. That's awesome. You know what? And as much as you're right. You're right. It makes it harder, but I look forward to possibly being a part of that in the future. So,
Yes, you definitely should be. Don't avoid me because you don't want to be on video, Steve.
oh, I won't. I just have to accommodate my schedule in different ways. And
Driving is perfectly
I will.
fine.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
It's fine. And no, listen, this is also holding me accountable because
I like it.
I look, as a video production company, there is no reason why. And, I produce these episodes myself. I do everything. I do the editing. I do all the social media work. I do the uploading. I do all the show notes. Every single step of the way has my hands on it, right down to the email communication with the guest and the links and all of those things. And there's absolutely, other than time, that was my excuse. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be holding the video or putting the video up. It's my goal through the company. Our mission of enticing media is to authentically tell stories. And I'm not doing that if I'm holding back because of something that I'm afraid of. I'm wearing a tie-dye sweatshirt with one day post air dried hair and no makeup. But that doesn't mean that my story isn't relevant. So
Right.
it's really accountability. And I've never been one to be afraid of the camera because of how I looked. So
Well, I commend you for sharing that the way you just shared it, because it's key, and I respect that. I mean, it makes a lot of sense with what you're saying. And when you do think of podcasting of the future, the majority of what you're seeing now on what I would consider a higher profile level is a lot of video content, a lot of in studio content.
Yeah.
And I commend you for looking at the future, setting goals for yourself, and setting a standard.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. That means a
Good
lot
job.
too. And yeah, I mean, all of it would be a little different if I had in studio guests. My podcast, I've had maybe, a handful of
Sure.
guests in studio. So it's all virtual. It's a little bit of a different beast to put together.
Yeah.
So, it's attainable and the time is now. So why not?
Well, and it sounds to me like a What the Nell studio could maybe one day show up in the future. One day.
Well, Steve, that has been talked about in this realm here because we've talked about a studio for another podcast near and dear to Enticing Media's heart, which is
Yes.
The Drunk
Yes.
Squirrel. So
Love it.
stay
Love it.
tuned. That's the moral of the story for everything that we have talked about today. Stay tuned.
I love it. I love it.
Awesome. And while we're here and talking about the future, also exciting announcement. You've probably heard me mention On the Road with Kenny and Nell, a radio show on Sandcastle Radio, 8 p.m. Eastern every Thursday. Well, now, in addition to Kenny's new show that's been on for a little bit now, Flip Flops and Beer on Wednesdays, we can add 90s Revenge to the lineup of enticing media produced radio shows for Sandcastle Radio that airs every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, get on the app or get on the website and listen to that if you want to throw back to some 90s tunes you maybe forgot about or loved. So, all right, Steve, this is where I formally thank you for being an awesome co-host, and we'll talk later.
Thanks, Nell. Have a good day.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, like the video, like our podcast, follow us on your favorite platform, leave us a review. That's how we grow here at the What the Nell podcast. And happy spring break, y'all. We'll see you in a few weeks.
To learn more about how to tell your story, connect with Nell at enTICEingmedia.com. That's enTICEing media.com. Thanks for listening to the What the Nell podcast.